The story today is how I spent a lot of time racing around only to find out that there's no need to race in life. My name's Ethan Davenport, and this is a spoken word poem about running. When I was in school, in my first few years of undergrad, I majored in track. I hate to admit it, I knew class was more important, and I knew it was bad. But it was when I was young, and it was when I was naive. And it wasn't something I could simply turn off, not something I could relieve. And so here I was. It was one night after a 3-hour lab. My group members hit the town to start a tab. I headed home. It wasn't far, and I had no business that night in a bar. I laced up my shoes, and I shot out for a midnight ride. I put my headphones in. I told my roommates, I'll be back soon. I lied. I begin my nightly battle, and fatigue is who I fight. Up through Forest Hill, led by soft street lamps and moonlight. On these rubber soles, I can fly. A runner's high is better than a drug high. And anyone willing to see that one through will learn a great deal and find out that it's true. On these runs, it's just a little too dark, and I can't even see the legs that carry me, giving the illusion that I'm floating. This is the trip, drug-free. On these runs, I am the failing investment banker, the one with the stressed-out hair and the loose necktie, the one betting all my funds on these failing parts that are certain to die. My sweat falls to the streets, salt no longer threatening the body it once held hostage. On these runs, I write greeting cards to exhaustion. Week in and week out, I stop this watch. My symbolic submission as I fall to my hands and knees and I search for any spare bit of air. And then I pray to the lactic gods. I pray they take no pity on me as I look down at my synchronized arms and legs, this running man contraption. I'm in love with its simplicity and its purity. I need no distraction as I appreciate in awe the miracle going on below. My rectus femoris, housing the microscopic components of contraction. Finally, a place of blame for my attraction to it all. The reason I am floating through that night. Finally, something at fault for this obsession of mine. Okay, I'd like to make a toast. Here's to the Sacramirs, the little engines that could. To myosin, the magnificent miniature mountain climbers that thought that they should. To the thin filaments, the ropes for our brave little climbers, some rebuilt, some brand new, sitting next to old-timers, all waiting for that influx of calcium from an electrical impulse from your brain is all you need to succeed. And somehow this all works. And somehow you can do this in a million other places, and you can breathe and you can talk, and your heart can pump enough blood, and it's no shock to the system that drives everything forward. Forward motion on my feet is what makes me feel complete. I have a fundamental fascination for the fact that somehow we were all put together so perfectly. I am utterly enchanted by this. I find the complexity of it spellbounding. It's confusing, it's uplifting, and strangely, it's grounding. How are you all not perplexed by the ease of such chaotic perfection? Is there someone I can thank for this, please? This is my moment of spirituality, when my overwhelming appreciation has no discernible destination, when I love something so much, but can't figure out who's behind that red curtain, who's sitting at that main control station, pushing all the right buttons, doing perfect justice to this creation, who's pulling all the right levers for these wide-eyed believers. I don't know. And so, with this blind faith, I sit calmly, poised above these pistons, with an endearing affection for putting one foot in front of the other, for making a spot on the horizon, life-size, and then behind me. On these runs, I began the manufacturing of a dream I would deem a worthy cause for applause, a dream it would seem that would cure me of my flaws. And I see failure following closely in the shadows, threatening it all to be a dream that was. But it's so simple. I had 3 years left to climb on top of this wooden podium, Then the incessant drive will cease. If not, my world turns to pandemonium. And so I wanted this feeling of glory. How selfishly I wanted this win. I wanted this TV moment of triumph, that magical Hollywood scene, the scene when the perfect song comes on and it's raining pathetic fallacy, the scene when the main character, the one you've been rooting for all along, finally he gets what he wants. And finally you see he reaches his goal and he becomes exactly what he set out to be. Stop trying to be the person you think you should be and be who you are. Is there supposed to be such an identity crisis when striving for greatness? It comes at a cost, but what is the fee? I wanted it bad, though. I wanted it more than a 4.0. With these running gods, I wanted to go toe-to-toe. I wanted that fairy tale collegiate career, one that my family, friends, and strangers alike would revere. Once I have this, I will have completed my grand mission. My dream to fruition. And that dream, it lasted. It lasted 3 more years, sweat and tears. And at the end of each season, I'd come up with a reason for why it didn't quite work that time around. And then I'd sulk for a moment, my head cast down, and then I'd bound into the next season with even more ambition, so that these first few years, they were just an audition. And now let me tell you about when I stepped to that line, year 5, last chance. All my eggs in one basket, everything down to that one last dance. And I was ready. I wish you could all feel how ready I thought I was. I wish we could all go back right now and feel how expertly composed I was, how centered I was, how genuinely present I was in that self-inflated moment, how my competitiveness had no side of ill will. How strongly I wish that those who lined up beside me would be like me, out to kill, so that when I won, it would taste that much sweeter. I wish you could feel how scared I was. Not scared of losing, but scared of the places I would need to go to have a fighting chance. Places my right mind would scream and fight at even a glance. Places I would exact the most convincing reason why not to go. This voice, so loud, shouting, "No, Ethan, stop. This is not life or death." And a smaller voice saying, "Push on. You're not even out of breath." Oh, how I have tricked that loud voice into believing I was in danger when I wasn't. All the deals I've made in my mind with pain as the wager. But oh, how that loud voice has beaten us. How many times in which that voice has won, I wish not to discuss. How it taints my perfectly timed past in these light-spiked shoes on this sacred oval. How it outnumbers my victories is woeful. How it all seems so silly sometimes. How no matter where you go and no matter what you do in life, make sure you can step back sometimes and even laugh at the strife. Admit that there are paths just as worthy as your own and appreciate those paths. Throw no stick, throw no stone. Because all of this is just about me prancing around in tights and short shorts. And I've laced it with repetition and rhymes, trying to convey to you all that these were good times. And so finally, here was failure. I was face to face with this old acquaintance. After years of incremental improvement and constant maintenance, this time there was no solace in planning for next year. This is the end of the line. No trains will be traveling beyond here. And that day, I raced as if it were my last. And in a way, maybe it was. And when I walked back to my bag after it was all said and done, I started to well up a bit, something I hate to admit. Disappointment tears because I failed after all these years. Because all my worst fears were in the hands of these anonymous cheers that came from an anonymous crowd. And I thought that all this would make me proud. Ethan, it was just a track race. Get your shit together. You've been through clear skies and stormy weather. But Al Pacino once told me that when you get old in life, things get taken from you. And it's true. And they do. And even though I can never get that race back, and even though I can never compete again in college track, I realized I had it wrong all along. It felt so hard to swallow as I looked around at the busy scene that carried on around me after that last race. How could it all carry on? Athletes running this way and that, so many unbroken dreams, so much hope intact. And I looked at my teammate, and all I could do was shrug. 5 years, 20 hours a week went into that shrug. And then he gave me this nod. And then he gave me a hug. And let me ask you a question. When you fail, can it still feel like a fairy tale? I realized, shit, here I am, crushed and broken, and it did. Not the folklore kind and not the one you can stop and rewind, but it did. And I realized that what I do has never been a means to an end. And all along, failure, no matter what the size, it had no jurisdiction over my dedication. It had no authority over my passion. It had no control over the imagination I had for this sport. All along, I thought I was in love with the idea of winning this prize. But being a champion now looked so different through these eyes. You find out that if you're true to yourself in the process, if you lay it all on the line, embrace the vulnerability that comes with the losses, and open your heart to those around you, you'll be fine. And life will guarantee you that fairy tale. The journey is your holy grail. And then I went back to my old running routes. They were the same, nothing changed. Up through Forest Hill, led by soft street lamps and moonlight, back to the same old therapy to find secrets stashed in the night. This is where I test myself. This is where I get to see what I am truly made of. Where I find clarity in the calamity and confusion of life. Where I find peace in the midst of a wicked battle. Sidewalk lines passing by as I climb this ladder to find my limits, teeter on the edge, and then redefine them. Trying to be better in every single way, and trying to do this each and every day. Thank you very much.